So what I wanted to bring to the table today is this word, civilization. I wanted to help us to interrogate this word a little bit. What does it mean? Where did it come from? And how has it accidentally tricked us off a cliff? Civilization comes from the Latin word civis, which means a citizen, a townsman. And so to be civilized was to be inducted into the town system, which in Roman law involved being governed by certain statutes and constitutions. So to be civilized also kind of means to be governed. And that's very important to note, because we have to understand how the word civilization was often weaponized to induct people who were not governed into the system of control and taxation. Very important. So I'm going to go through a few examples of that, how there's this spectrum between civilized and savage, and how this binary was used to disenfranchise people all over the world. So let's start first in Ireland. Long ago, maybe not too long ago, in geological time scale, in the 1100s, they were talking about how, and it's written down in historical records, how the Irish scorn the civilized life, the conveniences of the civil world, and they're always out in the forest being savages and painting them as dirty, painting them as unkept. And a lot of the Scottish kings were said to have been made civilized by being brought up by the English. And they say that the rust of their barbarism was washed away as they spent more time with England. And so there was an extreme campaign within the British Isles to really label the Welsh, the Irish, the Scottish as uncivilized and designate the British Empire as the apex of civilization. Now think about the word savage coming from the root word silva, which means forest. So people of the forest were deemed less technological, less advanced, which of course, as we can start to feel now in the 21st century, people of the forest are often much more healthy. They're not so caught up in a rat race. In America, we have so much time away from the forest, and yet a mental health epidemic. We have regular health epidemic with diabetes and cholesterol and all of these bodily diseases that are born of us being so civilized, so detached from our mother. Also, another example is in Thailand, where the Thai kingdom, who is a Buddhist empire, they would call all of the neighboring hill tribes these uncivilized people. Then they were living in the forest. And they were often forced to become Buddhist. I have a dear friend that I met of the Gazingon nation. He's from one of these hill tribes in Thailand. And he's my age. He's in his late 30s. And he said, when I was a boy, they would force us to speak Thai, and they would force us to be Buddhist. And if we couldn't ask for the bathroom in Thai, we wouldn't be allowed to use the bathroom. And they would pee and poo in their pants, all these little kids. And so it's not too long ago in Thailand, and it's still ongoing, that the people of the Pa, the forest, were viewed and are viewed as less civilized. So we've created this spectrum of people who are close to the earth as barbaric, people who are close to the earth as savage, people who are close to the earth as low-tech cavemen. and people who are far from the earth and deep in the city as being the most civilized. And of course, again, going back to taxation, this is very intentional, because the more you can integrate more human beings into the polity, the more human energy you have to tax. So it's very important from an empire standpoint to bring more and more people into this civilization as you can. Even if we all get fairer wages, it's still us giving our bodies to a system that reaps taxes from each and every one of us. Taxes are very important for central government. And so when we talk about civilization, we have to understand that not only has this been weaponized against the people of Africa who were deemed uncivilized because simply they lived close with the land. And there's so many examples. The people of Australia deemed uncivilized because they didn't have locomotives, they didn't have smartwatches, they didn't have all these gadgets. And defining those as those who were civilized as having all of these physical tools, technologies, but what are they worth, you know? We have so many PhDs and yet so much wealth disparity. We have so many rocket scientists and yet we can't figure out how to stop war on the planet. We have so many telescopes and microscopes and yet we can't seem to see the people suffering out our front door. And so how useful is this technology if it does not allow us to be truly civilized, to have a heart, to have compassion, to have selflessness, generosity, honesty, bravery, humility? In indigenous cultures, these were the indicators of civilization. And it's true, many of us were not civilized. The ones who lost their way, who started to dominate others. Chaco Canyon, where my people come from, we had caste systems there, we had slavery there. And they say that at one point, the Creator sent us a drought, which actually destroyed our whole civilization. And we went out into the forest, into the desert. And some might say we became less civilized, but we say we became more civilized. Because now when you hang out with Dene people, AKA Navajo people, you'll never hear one clan say it's more important than another. We have banished the caste system long ago in the year about 1100 when Chaco fell apart. And so we view this different spectrum. And I think that's what I'm asking us all to consider today. How do we define civilization? And how is that not only destroyed and given people license to destroy entire indigenous civilizations because they weren't civilized by our standards, but it has also duped us out of our connection to the earth, out of our connection to the water, out of our connection to humility. And we have so many gadgets and technologies, but our hearts and our minds are in disrepair. And so how has this term civilization not only destroyed my mother's people, about 98% of Native people, as you may know, were wiped out. Because we were uncivilized, it was okay. We didn't have a culture, which is a lot of what my dissertation tries to disprove, you know, that we were extremely potent upon the land and sculpted the land in amazing ways. But not only has this term civilization been weaponized to destroy entire peoples, you know, not just here where we're standing, but in Australia, in Africa, in Asia, and in Ireland. You know, it wasn't too long ago that Queen Elizabeth ordered that every single Celtic harpist be hung because they carried the songs, they carried the culture, they carried the identity of the Irish people. So it's not just melanated people who suffered this definition of civilization. It's even the indigenous tribes of Europe were destroyed as well. And the Romans were absolutely against the pagans. And they said, as different is the pagan from the civilized man as the speaking from the mute, the animal to human, and those who practice senseless cults and superstitions to those who live a Christian life. So we have all of these ways of defining civilization that have not only disenfranchised entire swaths of humanity, who are arguably much more civilized than we are, but has duped us as this sort of first world culture out of our connection to the earth. Because for so long, connection to the earth was conflated with savagery. And those who were distant from the earth, locked up in their castles and their cities, were deemed more civilized. And so in what ways has this tricked us out of our own connection to ourselves, our own connection to each other, and our own connection to the earth? And so it's very important to think about, even us in this room who are so enlightened, how we may have subconsciously been indoctrinated into this notion that we are so cool when we step into our Tesla, you know? We are so cool when we pop in our AirPods. We're so advanced. We're so smart. We're so important. We're so much more ahead. Ahead, I think that's the key word I'm looking for. Ahead. But where is ahead? Why isn't the people who have been protecting 80% of the world's biodiversity, why aren't they considered ahead? Because they don't have a Tesla? And so it's very important, I think, as we are on this journey to humanize the tech world, to wisdomize the tech world, to consider the ways in which not just the word civilization, but the word technology has estranged us from some of the most civilized behavior we could ever have, which is to know the names of plants more than we know the names of corporations, which is to know the names, the sounds of birds, more than we know the sounds of cars honking, to see the rising sun as our green light to get up instead of the street lights red and green, to have a connection to reality, which we also call nature. So to end, as you chew on that, I just want to sing a little song, because I think song tends to teach us in a different way than intellectual conversations. So before I finish and start singing, I just want to say thank you all. And please interrogate, you know, what are we doing when we buy into this definition of civilization? When really the most important thing that makes someone civil is their heart, how they treat the earth, how they treat each other. And so long as they have that, they could not even have a car and be doing some of the most important work on the planet. They say that history is written by the victors, but how can there be a victor if the war isn't over? The battle has only just begun, and Creator's sending her very best warriors, seeing them in front of me right now. And we know that the physical weapons will no longer serve us. The only weapons we have and the only weapons we need to win are the weapons of truth and faith and compassion. So I'm honored to be a warrior with you in this fight to bring love to our world. I love you all very much and have a beautiful day.